We go with some backup point guard conversation on a Friday. Theo Maledon no longer a part of the Charlotte Hornets. Backup point guard now, though. Ish Smith shared his comments on Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball in a recent interview. We'll also get to plenty of stats today, all on Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We are free and available anywhere you get your podcast. And as always, that includes YouTube. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. That's Doug Branson. You can find him on the Substack, EveryHornetsBoxscore.com. You can listen to me, Walker Mail, on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Interesting face that you just had there, Doug. Is everything okay? You seem frustrated just a little bit. Or is it because of maybe a certain move the Hornets made in the last 24 hours?
Yeah, I'm not frustrated. I'm in mourning. Theo, gotta let go. My rapidest song is gone. Oh, they waived Theo Maledon, if you haven't heard.
Yeah, it was a little surprising, I guess, to me. I didn't expect this, but then
first waiver, right? Hornets make the first move.
Yeah, I guess maybe. Well, and so they needed some center depth, as we talked about, and so this just had to be the casualty. Was two-way Theo no longer on a two-way contract with the Hornets anymore, and he had signed two-way contracts. The first one came October 15th, 2022, very late in the process, 2 seasons ago. And then he signed another two-way contract with the Hornets September 29th of this offseason. So he appeared in 57 games. He had 8 starts in the last couple of years, averaged 6 points, 2.5 rebounds, a little over 3 assists per game, and 18.5 minutes per game that he played. And we saw at the beginning of last year where he was playing and played well. That was probably the best stretch of basketball that he gave us. Came back at the end of last season and, just was keeping the ship afloat. This season, got to see some early minutes, but because he's on the two-way contract, there are minutes restrictions, and so you didn't see him play a lot in the middle portion of last season. Weren't seeing him a lot this year. They brought back Ish Smith. He just had an interview with Mac and Bone a little while ago we can get to. But so I guess they just didn't feel like they needed him anymore. And Doug, instead of having Theo Maledon, they felt like they needed to get a center, and that's where Nathan Mensah comes in on a two-way contract now. And he's appeared in just 14 games for the Swarm. He's averaging 10, 8.5 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 blocks in 29 minutes per game in Greensboro. What do you think overall about the transaction? After you get through the morning, what do you think after that?
Yeah, I mean, Theo, his 3-ball wasn't there at the beginning of the season when he was getting minutes, and on a bad defensive team, he was particularly awful. He's rated as the worst defensive player on the Hornets this season. Again, limited minutes, small sample size, but that existed. And so, when the Hornets went and got Ish Smith, it was kind of the writing was on the wall for Theo Maledon. He wasn't going to get minutes, DNP. They're relying on Terry Rozier to take, point guard duties, and then Ish behind him. So that being said, Mark Williams has a lower back contusion that he tried to come back from and then had to go out. I've said before, I'm really scared about lower back injuries of any kind and big men. So I'm hoping that everyone involved in that situation is being super careful with his return. But they don't have a third string center. So it's Nick Richards playing a lot of minutes. It was P.J. Washington and J.T. Thor and Miles Bridges trying to fill the gap there. Nick Richards is just back from a concussion that kept him out 9 games. And then you add on to that, P.J. going down in the last game in the first quarter, didn't return for a shoulder injury that appears, the broadcasters sort of brought up, hey, he's wearing a T-shirt, maybe that's an indication, under his jersey, maybe that's an indication that the injury happened prior to that game, so something he's been dealing with. This, giving the two-way deal to Mensah and waiving Theo would suggest to me that the organization feels like they may be without both Mark and PJ for some kind of amount of time. What do you think?
Well, and I also think that the other factor in all of this is that Terry Rozier has looked a lot better on ball this season and has looked a lot better as the primary playmaker. So it used to be, okay, in a pinch, we would love to get Terry back to that off-ball combo guard type role. Maybe we can bring Theo in, put him alongside Terry, and then just, figure out defensively what the hell we're going to do. But now we don't even have Mark out there to protect that. So now we're in a real pinch, and at least Terry playing so much better as the primary decision maker in pick and roll, facilitating at a high level compared to what he had been doing. I think this is the move that they decided to go with, and because of Terry and because, yeah, you're right, they didn't even have enough center depth before Mark Williams went down. Now that PJ, so think about it. Mark Williams, doubtful for this game in the last report, according to Hornets PR. So Mark Williams doubtful for this game against the Pelicans. PJ Washington, you can't even have your small ball center. He's questionable with a shoulder injury, but now you can't even have your small ball center. Nick Richards, Steve Clifford is screaming at him to set screens, and now you have to go to Nathan Mensah, who comes in as a conference defensive player of the year when he was at San Diego State. And so there is he was a longtime player there, 5-year player with the Aztecs back in college. And
that's fine.
Had 2 blocks a game in Greensboro. Like, I'm hoping that there's a smart defender here. I haven't watched a lot of Greensboro tape, to be honest with you. I apologize to the people, but hopefully he's a smarter defender that knows where he needs to be in protecting the rim. Hopefully he can block a shot or two if he gets in the game.
It's unproven. He's an unproven NBA player. I mean, this is a Band-Aid, right? I mean, they obviously expect to get one of these, PJ or Mark, back in the lineup sooner rather than later. But if they both miss this game, they got to have somebody, because even if PJ were healthy, you look at the stats, Walker, on lineups that don't feature one of their true centers in Mark Williams and Nick Richards, and a vast majority of those lineups that have played, I would say, significant minutes when you pool all of the lineups together, more significant than other teams playing without a true center, that can't function well, on both ends of the floor in significant minutes, without a center, which the Hornets can't. But you look at these lineups, they're getting crushed on defense. I mean, the main one, PJ, Miles, Gordon, Brandon, and Terry, that's a 143.2 points per possession on defense. Crushed. Next one, 123.1, 146.2, 138. It's not just that it's like, oh man, they're giving up a few points. Like, no, they are getting dominated on the defensive end when they don't have a center. And that's why I just don't understand how you go into this season with only 2 guys at center. And really it is, Steve Clifford likes to say cross his fingers, in regards to Cody Martin's injury. But that's what this team did. They crossed their fingers and said, I really hope that one of these guys doesn't get hurt. And of course, both of them did. And now they're in this situation where they're depending on Nathan Mensah.
Everybody check their calendar. It's December 15th. I think they're going into their 24th game of the season, right? This is where I'm legitimately asking the question. This is not a joke anymore. I've had this joke a couple times already, but now it's real. Do you know what question I'm going to ask you, Doug?
Do they need a Plumlee? Do they need to call a Plumlee?
It's a great one. It's a good one. No, there is a center, though, that is affiliated with the Charlotte Hornets currently in some capacity that might have been able to help this year. And that guy's James Najee. Could James Najee have realistically helped this team this season defensively? Because offensively, we know how much of a problem it was going to be. But defensively, Doug, hell, man. I mean, think about who they just dropped Theo Maledon for. No. Nathan Mensah, who... How many minutes a game was he getting for Summer League? Like, Najee was legitimately good in Summer League. I stand by it. I know you're shaking your head.
Summer League. Unproven in the NBA. I need someone. But well, again, I'm speaking from the perspective of not a team looking to develop young talent, but a team that has stated that they want to have some kind of postseason action. Then they should have gone and got a legitimate, and they still have the opportunity to go out and get, a legitimate backup center option when they're ailing. So I don't know. Just unproven guys all over the place. Although I will say this, I really hope that they have just been hiding Nathan Mensah under a bushel and that he is super smart on defense and can help them, because I love the name Mensah. There's just so many, if he makes a block shot, that's smarts. I'm sure you could do something with high IQ. That's a great nickname. I mean, the nickname opportunities, the chances for an Eric Collins call to go right are really good with Nathan Mensah in the lineup.
All right, so at least you lose two-way Theo, Rapide Sonk. You lose Theo, got to let go, but we get Mensah in return.
Maybe. We'll have to see if they even play him. I mean, you put him on the two-way contract, sure. That would indicate.
Who else are they gonna play? If PJ or Mark, if they don't play, which is a very good possibility, questionable and doubtful designations for them, then you have to. It's Nick Richards.
You either do that or you put platform shoes on Bryce McGowan's. One of the two. Those are your two options at this point. You either put Bryce McGowan's on. He's going to look like the kids who try to sneak into the movie theater. You put a giant trench coat and maybe Ish lifts Bryce McGowan's up on his shoulders.
Love it. I think that's what they should do.
Those are your options.
We have more ideas coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
This is all a choice.
That would be a choice to have Bryce McGowan's on top of Ish Smith's shoulders. That would absolutely be a choice. We're going to go with a few other stats. Doug has been researching hard. He has been doing a lot of work behind the scenes, trying to dig up some more stats on the Charlotte Hornets this season. So we'll go behind the numbers in just a moment. Speaking of going behind the numbers, this episode is brought to you by Dave. Finances can be so intimidating. That's why you need Dave. Dave can make managing your money so much easier with an interest-free, extra cash advance, fee-free goal track. Fee-free. That's tough to say. Fee-free. Fee-free goal tracking and easy ways to find a side hustle to make more money. Dave is the banking app that's leveling the financial playing field. And when you download Dave, you could get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less. There's no credit check. There's no late fees. It's part of Dave's extra cash account. Advance the money you need with no interest and then settle up later. Extra cash gives you more money to buy groceries, fill your tank, finally get your car repaired, or catch up on bills without having to wait on your next paycheck. You can even build credit when you settle up on time. Millions of people have already downloaded the Dave app to make their finances easier. So if you're in a pinch, get the help you need by downloading Dave. Download Dave today at dave.com/LockedOnNBA. That's dave.com/LockedOnNBA. You could get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less. 500. No credit check. No late fees. Download the Dave app now or go to dave.com/LockedOnNBA. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Eligibility criteria and instant transfer fees apply. Banking services provided by Evolve, member FDIC. More Locked On Hornets ahead. All right, odds are, as of when we put this podcast out, you might have heard it, but I'm going to guess you haven't heard of the interview yet because I literally got into the car, got to what is, we're going to call it Walt Studios. I'm at Walt Studios right now. Big shout out to Walt for letting me use his house to help me record the podcast right now, because if it wasn't for him, there would be no podcast on my part. So I got in the car and was listening to Ish Smith join Mac and Bone on WFNZ before pulling up to Walt Studios. And Mac and Bone were talking to him about LaMelo Ball, about Ish Smith's playing days, funniest teammate, and it was a lot of great stuff. Ish is really good at this. You should go check it out, WFNZ.com. They asked him about Brandon Miller, and so said, hey, what's been most impressive? Said, yeah, I knew we could score. I watched him play against South Carolina in college and just absolutely destroyed him. He was really impressive offensively and defensively. But the thing that he's most surprised about with a rookie coming into the league, Doug, it's the fact that Brandon is not afraid of the moment whatsoever. That's something that that was when David was on earlier this week. We talked about that. It's so easy to see, and you've seen it in multiple games this year. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are. It doesn't matter if there's a guy on the opposition being a part of the all back alley team, dudes that you really don't want to mess with. Either there is this blissful ignorance. Brandon Miller is about that. I'm going to choose to believe that Brandon is about it. Like, he clearly has that attitude that he's ready to go with anyone. And Ish pointed out in this last game against Miami, Brandon was like 1 of 7, 1 of 8 to start, maybe 2 of 8, something like that. And then in the fourth quarter hits the 8 points to lead the Hornets in the fourth quarter. Shooting percentage pretty damn respectable at the end of the game with a 40% 3-point percentage after the fourth quarter was over and done with. Man, that's what you love about Brandon, and that's exactly what I thought too. This guy is ready. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are. He's always going to be the same Brandon Miller. Maybe the shot doesn't go in. Maybe he has a few more turnovers. People have bad games. But one quarter is not going to affect the other. And I think that's what you love about a rookie in Brandon.
Yeah, he's already breaking 3-point shooting records for a rookie. Like, I mean, that to me, that's crazy. And it reflects
10, and they're like trusting him to take 10 double digit. That's a ton. That's what your stars do. They take 10 from deep.
It's nuts. It reflects how the game has changed dramatically since, the Hornets of the 80s, 90s, and early aughts. But it's also reflective of a couple of draft choices that they've made that we all thought, oh, this person's going to come in and just rain down threes, and it didn't happen. We took it for granted. We took it for granted that Monk was going to have that kind of offensive impact. We took it for granted that that Bouknight was going to have that kind of offensive impact early, and didn't. They were not plug-and-play guys. It took Monk a while before he figured everything out. And Brandon, it has not taken any time at all. And Ish has seen a lot of teams. He's seen a lot of players. He's been in a lot of different kinds of situations. And so for him to say that, I think is meaningful. I don't think he necessarily has to say that, right? I mean, I guess he owes the Hornets in some respect because they gave him, just this sort of last hurrah. But I don't
Ish didn't even know if he wanted to play, though. Like, I mean, right. he had to talk to everybody before he even suited up again.
Right. So I don't think he has to say this necessarily. I think he's sharing his honest thoughts on what he's seeing from Brandon Miller. Brandon Miller wants to take the shot, and that's such a huge thing. I mean, I bring up another rookie, Frank Kaminsky, who had confidence issues his first couple of seasons when he suited up for the Hornets, and when shots didn't fall for him, his whole game fell apart, and his whole, I think mental grasp of how he could play the game fell apart when the shots weren't falling. That doesn't happen with Brandon Miller. And so we cannot take any of this for granted. We have to recognize what it is, which is something very special.
Well, and in the fourth quarter especially, that's what I think you love, because Steve Clifford trusts Brandon. He's playing Brandon in closing minutes, and that, I mean, it's pretty much right off the bat. Brandon was playing closing minutes. I mean, even if this team was fully healthy, he was going to Brandon Miller, early and often. And in the fourth quarter, he's been excellent, Doug.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got some stats for you here. Among players who are sort of legitimate rotation players who get legitimate minutes in the fourth quarter, Brandon Miller leads the team in effective field goal percentage at 68.8. Miles Bridges just behind him at 67.4, and then LaMelo Ball at 66.7, Terry Rozier at 64.9. And true shooting percentage, same deal. Brandon at 69.1, Miles at 67.9, and LaMelo at 68.8. So doing some fantastic things. And the crazy thing is his usage percentage is only 16.3 in those fourth quarters. So he's not even, the offense is not running through him. We've talked a lot about this, that Brandon Miller is doing a lot off ball. The future evolution of his game will be, can he do it on ball at the same kind of a fit? That's the transition that all these kind of, super wings make is, all right, you can do it off ball. Now we're going to run the offense through you. You're going to run the offense. Can you keep up that same efficiency? That'll be for later times, but he's passing that first test with flying colors. And then if you break it down, just rookies, fourth quarter, he leads all rookies in effective field goal percentage at 68.8. Behind him is Koulibaly. Actually, he's doing really well as well. And then Victor Wembanyama coming in at fourth at 59.4. Now, I'm not sure. Yeah, no, Chet Holmgren at 56 effective field goal percentage. True shooting, same deal. He's leading all rookies except for Chet. And true shooting percentage, because Chet gets fouled a lot. That's another thing, Walker. Brandon hasn't proven that he can get to the foul line. That'll be another evolution of his game.
Yeah, well, and that's going to come with as soon as he has the basketball in his hands a little more, because he's playing a lot of minutes. He's going to have a lot of minutes under his belt. Like, as soon as he's done with the season, I would like to know if he'll have played more minutes than any rookie in the last, how far can we go back since the second coming of the franchise? I mean, maybe Emeka Okafor would have him beat, because who else were you going to play with those early Bobcats teams? But man, especially with the second iteration of the Hornets title, it might be Brandon having played more minutes than any other rookie. And so now you're talking about him, excuse me, with the basketball in his hands, with Brandon Miller starting to dribble, take it to the rack. Yeah, he's not even averaging 2 free throw attempts per game yet. So you're not even, I mean, yeah, you think about it, right? You get fouled on a shot, you take 2 free throws. He's not even reaching that mark yet. So we'll see. But I'll take the outside shot making at an incredible level. I think we'll all take that and what we're seeing right now from the rookie out of Alabama. All right, let's move on. One more segment to go. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast. We'll find the local angle once more. Find out how Doug gets Steph Curry to Charlotte again in the next segment. Maybe he brings you a different local angle. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. It's the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. That's it. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros, sharks, you pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and then you can watch the winnings roll in. With the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League. It's a league created specifically for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. If you want to keep it local, like we try to do, hey, we try to find the local angle. Chuba Hubbard rushing yards and rushing attempts for the Carolina Panthers. That's something you should pick more than. But also, I saw a combined Brandon Miller points, rebounds, and assist category on PrizePicks, and it was only at 22. And I took a look at that going into that Miami game, and I was like, hey, pick the more than here. Sure enough, I think he topped out. I'm struggling. I think he topped out at like 23 or 24. So you would have won some money, up to 25 times your money if you would have bet that much. PrizePicks even offers a reboot policy so that your entry stay in place even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and doesn't return in the second, that player is rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. Go to prizepicks.com right now. /LockedOnNBA, prizepicks.com /LockedOnNBA, and use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. More Locked On Hornets ahead.
So during that break, Walker, you're struggling a little bit with phlegm. I've been struggling a little bit with phlegm, and it makes me think of something that David Walker brought up to us in our little private, chat that we have. And he said, we haven't been doing well with the Bet the Buzz, and we are going to bring it back. I promise. It's going to be my Christmas gift to all the listeners. We are going to bring this back. But we need to fund this thing somehow because we've been struggling to actually hit these Bet the Buzz bets. So he suggested we do sort of a jar that we can, put money into when things happen on this show to try to, it would both improve the show and help to fund the Bet the Buzz. So I think, we make this sort of phlegm bucket where it sounds pretty gross. It sounds pretty gross. That sounds awful. But it sounds gross when we do it. And I think it would improve the show and help us to remind us to improve our, preparation, our vocal preparation. And every time we have one of these incidents, $1 goes in the jar.
I don't know how much we can help it. That's the problem.
Well, you better start. Apple juice, buddy.
No, so vocal preparation makes it seem like we could be doing something before the show.
I do it before every show.
Nah, I don't know what we could do. I don't.
We're doing it.
Do you think people are in favor of the phlegm? Oh God, I don't even want to say
phlegm bucket. Well, it doesn't have to be exclusively phlegm. We can add to it. For example, I think every time you mention some kind of interview that you do with WFNZ, or you make some kind of obnoxious radio professional name drop, that we drop $1 into the bucket. And if you would look, if I do something that's every time I interrupt you, okay, there's a good one. I'm just trying to improve this show and fund Bet the Buzz so that we can bring it back for the people. Okay? The phlegm bucket.
No, you're trying to improve the show by calling me out for phlegm and name dropping.
I just said one thing for me. Interrupt. Look, that's $1 right there. I just interrupted you. That's $1. I'll pay the first $1 in the phlegm bucket. You're welcome.
There you go. Phlegm bucket. That's what the show has come down to. That's how the Hornets are playing right now. Phlegm bucket. Let's find the local angle. So Cam Newton has been all the rage in media circles because he's dropping a lot of takes. He's got his podcast now, 4th and 1 podcast. And Cam has already had some videos go, I don't know about viral, but they've been circulating on TikTok before he started doing the media tour, launching his new podcast. He's very good at this. Cam Newton, a beloved figure in Charlotte sports history. But now Cam is all the rage because he dropped this take about the difference between game managers and game changers, which is already just like first take level stuff. He's already
it's an audition
amazing
tape.
at this. Yeah. And the fact that what's so good about this is he put the exact trigger QBs in the combo. He knew exactly which ones would be triggering. Tua, Brock Purdy, Jared Goff, and then he ended with the biggest one of them all in putting Dak Prescott into that conversation. And so that's what really got people going. But then he started sharing some stories about his Panthers playing days. He got into a little bit of a argument with Sam Darnold about who was going to start. This was on the QB Room podcast with Jordan Palmer and Kyle Allen, of all people, too. So a little fight with Sam Darnold during his playing days. He said he was coaching the coach and Matt Rule, how they needed to hold him accountable. He talked about Tygate when he didn't start the primetime game against Seattle and they got destroyed. Derek Anderson, first throw of the game. Derek Anderson throws an interception. So he was dishing.
Well, DA didn't want to be out there either. He's like, what's going on here? I don't want to do this.
I know. So he was dishing all the goods. Now, I don't know where Doug is going to go with this. I mean, because there's a lot of content coming from Cam Newton right now. Yeah. How do we find the local angle is that it's Cam. That's one local angle.
No, hyper. Yeah, this is a hyper local because I'm going to tie it back to the Hornets. Okay,
gotcha. What's the link? What's the langle? Let's do that. What's the langle?
Well, first, that sounds, I don't know why that sounds naughty, langle, but it does. It's one of those sneak words that you don't know why. It's just something subconsciously. Langle sounds naughty. Okay. First of all, I want to say Cam Newton, I love everything that he's doing right now. The timing of this is perfect with everybody mad at Tepper and the whole situation around the Panthers. Like the timing, I don't know if he meant it, but it is absolutely perfect. And the fact that he looks like a Batman villain sort of releasing a video to Gotham City, that is, I just love every bit of it. So kudos to Cam, number one. The local angle is just, it had me thinking that the Charlotte Hornets are so fortunate that they've never had a star that is as talented and as willing to go out on the record as Cam Newton. Like, imagine if Kemba Walker were to dish on some of the issues of the late Bobcats, early Hornets, why they couldn't get back to the playoffs after 15. Nobody, I mean, not even Lance Stevenson. Really, the only guy that I can think of is Steven Jackson.
Well, I was about to say, Steven Jackson.
But that's Bobcats.
Share a lot of it.
He shared a lot in Bobcats. That's what I'm saying. I haven't found anyone willing to go out and release and dish in the same way that Cam has on some of this late Hornets action, but they've been very fortunate in that way. And I think when you go out and you find as many nice guys as the Hornets have, it hasn't translated to winning. But it does sort of buffer you if you're Michael Jordan or the rest of the front office. If you go out and find these nice guys who don't say a lot, it doesn't mean that you're going to win ball games, but it does mean that you won't face as much criticism when you don't win those ball games.
Marvin Williams is not going to host a podcast destroying the Charlotte.
Well, he's on the payroll. Of course he is.
He's on payroll now. Those types of guys aren't going to do it. It does take away from the fact that Cam Newton is rare. It's not like many franchises have that type of guy going out and being this attractive in the media, because he is. Cam Newton, this is what makes him maybe the most important sports figure in all of Charlotte sports. It might make him it's certainly, he's up there for most valuable, having won MVP in the NFL, which is crazy, gotten them to a Super Bowl. It gave us the most historic season that we've ever seen in Charlotte sports at 15-1. So with Cam Newton already having that type of personality too, I mean, yeah, it's a match made in heaven for Charlotte sports meeting mainstream media and getting all of the tea on everything that ever happened.
When that guy lands on the Hornets roster, and he may already be here in Brandon Miller, he's just, you can't do it as a rookie. When that guy either evolves out of Brandon Miller or arrives here on this roster, you are going to know it. You are going to notice it. The radio will be talking about it. Our guy Nick Carboni will be talking about it because it's an attitude. It's a feeling that we have not experienced here as Hornets fans in a very long time. And it's a demand for excellence. It's a demand for winning. It's a toughness. It's an attitude that we just haven't seen. Not even out of Terry Rozier. And that's not a criticism of Terry necessarily. You're either that guy or you're not. But Terry has tasted like he's played in an NBA Finals. No one on this team right now is mad enough, in my opinion, about the situation that they're in. And I think a lot of it is injuries, the injury luck. I think people do settle into that, like, well, what are you going to do? And there's a lot of excuse making. But and I think part of this too is that there's just not a winning culture here. If this team had gone to even a second round of a playoffs in the past 20 years, maybe there would be some level within the organization of like, hey, we got to get back there. We were there. People were excited. We saw the looks on the people's faces. We've got to get the building rocking again. The building hasn't been rocking in 21 years.
That's true. By the way, yeah, he's been to an Eastern Conference Finals, which is like the NBA Finals for us. Terry has been to an actual NBA Finals, but okay. Conference Finals matters. It matters to us here because we haven't been to one. That's
funny. Exactly. That would be our finals. Exactly.
It would be, considering we haven't done it before. All right, that'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen, as you do every single day. You should, if you're not doing it already, and you can get us wherever you get your podcast. That includes YouTube, and then you can go check out Doug's Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. You can listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3. The Hornets play the Pelicans tonight, and they play Philadelphia on Saturday. So back-to-back action this weekend. Big show coming up on Monday. We'll recap it all. Have a great weekend.